This is a really long video. I'm sorry. I wish I could have been more concise, but I wanted to get all my points across, and I had a lot to talk about. So I'm going to try and make use of chapters. So I'll have like a part where I talk about, oh, why is this happening, and why is nobody fighting this, or whatever. I'll have that as a chapter. I'll have different stuff as a chapter. I'll have the personal bits. I'll have the hypotheticals. I gave an analogy towards. Well, it was a separate recording, so I don't know where that'll be in the video, but I'll have a chapter for that. I'll have different chapters. Just look at them. If you don't want to watch the whole thing, because this is kind of long, but I promise there'll be chapters. You don't got to watch the whole thing. But I'd appreciate it if you watched some of the video. And if you do want to watch the whole thing, go for it, man. I appreciate it. Alright, Nintendo, you picked a bad morning to piss me off. Alright, so this is a topic that I've wanted to vaguely cover in something or other. I didn't realize it was going to affect me. I didn't realize that it was going to jack up my plans. I didn't realize that this was going to go as far as it did. So, where do I start? Some stuff has been happening in the Nintendo fan space and the emulation space as a whole. As of April 17th, 2024, Delta Emulator has been added to the App Store for the iPhone. Why did this happen? I'm pretty sure the EU sued Apple into doing this. This is a live research. I'll talk about it because I'm vaguely aware of what's happening, but I'm going to refer to articles for insight. Apple has been pressured by numerous governments to allow more stuff on the iPhone. They have to open it up, or they're going to be forced to open it up the way the government wants. So Apple's opening it up the way they want to by kind of scaling back on restrictions, and one of those things was to allow emulator apps. Delta Emulator is something that has been developed for the Apple iPhone for a while now. But you had to jailbreak your iPhone and get it on there before, where now it's just on the App Store. It's just on there because it's allowed by their new terms of service. So, last month, as of a month ago exactly, basically, Delta has been available on the App Store on iPhone, and I have been utilizing it. I won't lie. I've been playing some games. I had a Pokemon Crystal ROM hack. I've been playing Crystal Legacy, that's been my go-to thing, but also Pokemon Pinball Ruby and Sapphire. Pokemon Pinball Ruby and Sapphire has been my new phone addiction for a while now. It has been my go-to phone game. Pokemon Pinball Ruby and Sapphire. I fell in love with this game. Now, did I obtain it illegally from a website? Perhaps. I'm not going to say yes or no, because that would be potentially legally incriminating. All of this nonsense exists in a legal gray area. I'll get to that. It makes me angry. But what I will say is that I obtained a ROM of Pokemon Pinball Ruby and Sapphire. I've been playing it on my phone, and I wanted to stream it because I've actually been addicted to this game, and I feel like chilling on a Twitch stream for 2 hours and playing Pokemon Pinball. It sounds like a fun night. So it's been in my backlog, and I was going to play it. I was actually going to reobtain the ROM. Now I have to move it off of my iPhone and just use the same copy of the game instead of downloading perhaps a new one. Why is that? Well, it's because Vimms Lair has been hit. The archival website where I go to obtain all old games that you can't find anymore. I emphasize old games that you can't find anymore. This is a fake copy of the game. These are all used copies. Nintendo is not selling this game. Nintendo doesn't sell this game. They don't sell it. The Wii U eShop shut down in March. As did the 3DS eShop. You cannot obtain this game as Virtual Console on any of those systems. The Nintendo Switch doesn't have virtual consoles. You cannot obtain old games for the Nintendo Switch unless you subscribe to Nintendo Switch Online, which is great for the games that are on Nintendo Switch Online. Unfortunately, Pokemon Pinball Ruby and Sapphire is not on NSO. It's not there. You can't... Pokemon Pinball Ruby Sapphire. You can't play it on the Nintendo Switch. You can't play it. It's not... It's worth noting that Nintendo Switch Online has 2 subscription tiers. It's got a tier that lets you play older systems. You can play NES, SNES, and Game Boy Color games with the basic tier subscription that just allows you to use online. That's the subscription tier I have. There's a higher subscription tier that costs more than double that allows you to play some select Nintendo 64 and Game Boy Advanced games, as well as Sega Genesis for somehow very select list of games. And Pokemon Pinball Ruby and Sapphire, the game that I've fallen in love with as of recent, it's not one of those games. It's not on the list. I can pay Nintendo $50 for that stupid subscription, and I still don't get access to that game. It's just not there. It's not on the list. You can't obtain it from them. You can't get it on the eShop. You can't buy it from them online as a cartridge. You can't buy it as part of your Nintendo subscription. There's no legal way to obtain this game from Nintendo. The only legal way to obtain a copy of this game is to buy it used, a potentially counterfeit copy of the game. So, the only legal, and I say legal with an asterisk here because emulation in and of itself is in a very sketchy area. I'll get to that in a minute. But the quote-unquote legal way to play this game would be to buy a potentially counterfeit cartridge off of the internet from somebody I don't know, and then I have to have a device that plays that cartridge. I have to count on that cartridge still being in good condition, which this is a video game from like 2003, 2004, maybe 2005. That's 20 years ago. There's no way of knowing that this is still intact and a still fully functional piece of electronics. Because electronics age like shit. Especially new ones. I guess older stuff kind of was built to last, but there was no way of knowing how long the memory on these cartridges is going to last. You know, who knows? Maybe the save data on that cartridge is bad. Maybe the battery is bad. If I open the cartridge, I have to replace the battery. That wipes the save data. I have to, like, manually repair this piece of electronic to get it to work. But okay, so if I didn't want to play this on a Game Boy Advanced or on a Nintendo DS, in order to play this on a modern device, it would have to be through an emulator. Emulators in and of themselves are not necessarily illegal, even though they kind of are, especially the newer ones. They have to use copyrighted code to even boot because of how operating systems are configured. But older systems, you can emulate fine without copyrighted code. So it's legal to download an emulator for the Game Boy Advanced. So you download your Beetle GBA or whatever you're going to use, and then in order to obtain this ROM legally, you have to buy one of these mystery cartridges, hope that it comes in good condition. You're not buying it from Nintendo, so they don't gain any money from you. You just have to play the fucking eBay lottery. So then you buy your cartridge. Let's say you get lucky. For $100, you get a cartridge that works. Great. Now you have to download the ROM. So you have to buy a flash cart for your Nintendo DS. It has to be an old DS. It can't be a DSi. Those don't have a cartridge slot for GBAs. So you have to get a Nintendo DS format flash cart that lets you pop an SD card in there. You have to get the software on there that lets you rip games. So then you have to take your GBA game, plug it in the bottom of the DS, take your flash card, plug it at the top of the DS. You have to run your ROM ripper or whatever software. And that's how you obtain the ROM. And then you have to put the SD card in your computer, copy it over there. Now you have potentially a legal copy of Pokemon Pinball. I say potentially because even though this has legal precedent for being like fair game, you know, the consumer is technically allowed to make copies of software for themselves. within their own home and devices without committing piracy, that's such a legal gray area. It does not fall within the confines of the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, for which these companies seem to always rely on. The Digital Millennium Copyright Act does not allow for the copying or reproducing of any copyrighted assets, even if you're downloading the ROM off of a cartridge you own to a computer that you own and you're not distributing it. You're still technically breaking the law under the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, but there was one liberal judge somewhere along the right way that said maybe you shouldn't go to jail for that. Maybe that shouldn't constitute piracy. Which is why nobody is fighting Nintendo in court. When they DMCA take down everything, or, even if it's something that isn't I'm distributing ROMs, maybe if it's an emulator that gets taken down, like Citra and the Nintendo Switch one, what was it, Yuzu? That got taken down. And they didn't fight Nintendo in court, even if they had the money to, which nobody doing this thing has the money to, because you can't sell an emulator. You have to do it for free. Otherwise, that runs into its whole own area where Nintendo would totally sue you. But you have to do it for free, and then Nintendo will maybe sue you. And then if Nintendo sues you, you're fucked. You can't fight them in court. Why? Because they're going to take it all the way up. They're going to appeal, they're going to appeal, they're going to appeal. On the off chance you win the first court case, they're going to appeal it to the federal circuit, and then they're going to change the law, because that's how U.S. law works. Nintendo doesn't like it, they're going to lobby until you can't make copies of your own software anymore. Because that's the world we live in. You don't own your video game. If I didn't exist when this game came out. I'm going to be honest. I'm a 2006 kid. The Nintendo DS had just been conceived. So this was on its way out. I have no way of having obtained this game as a kid, because it wasn't on store shelves then, and Nintendo doesn't sell it now. How am I supposed to play this video game? I would love to hand Nintendo $20 and say, yeah, again, I have Pokemon Pinball on my 3DS. But they got rid of the ability to do that like a year ago. You can't do it. It's off limits. This game just fucking doesn't exist anymore as far as Nintendo's concerned. I have a subscription service that doesn't let me play it. Arbitrarily adding and not adding games to the service. I think that Nintendo, if you're going to have a subscription service where you pay $50, I guess it's $50 a year, so that's not a lot in the grand scheme of things. Game Pass is like $20 a month or something stupid like that. But if you're going to have a subscription service where you're like, yeah, we're bringing back these classics, have every single fucking game available. Every one of them. Every single game in the Nintendo backlog, because there's only a few thousand of them per system, and I say that like it's a small number. I know 1,000 games is a lot of games. Nobody's going to play every single SNES game in existence, but like, file size wise, you can fit every game in existence for the Nintendo Game Boy Advanced onto a 16 gig flash drive that you buy at Walmart for $8. You can fit all those games on there. So I should be able to pay Nintendo, even if it's an exorbitant amount of money. Maybe I pay Nintendo $20 per ROM. I should be able to, because those games exist somewhere. But Nintendo says, no, they don't exist anymore. We want you to engage with our products the way we want. And if you don't, then fuck you, we're going to sue you. You can't engage with anything the way that we don't want. Exhibit A, Gary's Mod, and The Purge. Let's go to Steam for a minute. Some of you may have noticed that certain Nintendo-related workshop items have recently been taken down. This is not a mistake. The takedowns came from Nintendo. Honestly, this is fair enough. This is Nintendo's content, and what they allow and don't allow is up to them. They don't want you playing that stuff in Gary's Mod. That's their decision. We have to respect that and take down as much as we can. This is an ongoing process, as we have 20 years of uploads to go through. If you want to help us by deleting your Nintendo-related uploads and never uploading them again, that would help us a lot. Poor fucking Gary Newman has to deal with Nintendo's legal side. Nintendo is losing no money from people uploading funny Mario in Garry's Mod. They have nothing to lose and everything to gain from their IP being spread more on the internet. You know, there's one reality where Nintendo stuff is in Garry's Mod. Now you've got these kids watching Funny Skibbity Toilet, and maybe Mario shows up in Funny Skibbity Toilet. Why? Because he's in Garry's Mod. You can download Mario to Garry's Mod. Then you have Exhibit B, where Mario is not allowed to exist in Garry's Mod because Nintendo swung the legal hammer. And yes, it's within their right. It's their copyright. What the fuck ever. They didn't have to do this. Because now you can't have Mario in Funny Skibbity Toilet. That's just less advertising for Nintendo. Less free advertising for Nintendo. Why would you opt out of free advertising? That is the dumbest business decision you could ever make. Imagine if the Stanley Cup CEO, instead of like buying that lady a new car because she did the TikTok where she's like, hey, the ice is still in my Stanley Cup in my car that caught on fire and exploded because my Stanley Cup is so awesome. What if instead of the guy who made the Stanley Cup buying her a new car for the advertising, what if instead of even being indifferent, what if he's fucking sued her? You're like, you're using the Stanley Cup in this TikTok and I don't approve of this. I'm going to sue you now. Like, why? Why would you do that? That is counterintuitive. I don't understand. This probably sounds like shit. I'm looking at OBS and I'm peaking the fuck out of the mic, but also I'm peaking it at minus 10 decibels, so it should be good. Point is, I don't understand the mentality here. Why? Why can't I download Pokemon Pinball from Vimms Lair? I have already demonstrated that this is a game that you cannot obtain anywhere. They archived 100% of Nintendo games. This was an achievement. This is the only place that you could obtain ROMs without some fucking virus in your computer. Is Nintendo within their legal right to do this? Yes, but I must ask why. Perhaps they could have struck a deal with Vim, whoever the fuck Vim is. Perhaps they could have reached an agreement where every game that is available on Nintendo Switch or available on modern Nintendo hardware is banned from downloading. They could have reached an agreement. And then all of the stuff in the Nintendo backlog that they have no intention of ever putting on the Nintendo Switch Online service, you could still play. But no, we live in a society where I can't play Pokemon Pinball. I go to the P section, and I go to Pokemon Pinball, and I'm on a different Chrome account, which is why none of this is blue text. Pokemon Pinball Ruby Sapphire. Download, box art, and screenshots unavailable at the request of Nintendo of America. Not just the ROM, not just the download, the box art, and screenshots. They have copyright struck Vimms Lair to the point where they can't have pictures of the game on the website. Like, that seems illegal. You should be able to post the pictures of the games on the website. I don't understand how that breaches copyright, but because of the downloads, Vim had to take 3 steps back. Vim had to, like, either double down and countersue or just completely abide by everything Nintendo said, which included removing box art and screenshots. At least that's my speculation. I don't know, because they've said nothing. The last post on Vimms Lair's front page was about Delta Emulator becoming popular. I don't know what's happening. I feel bad for the guy that runs this site. I wonder if, out of curiosity's place, is Sega stuff still available? Knuckles Chaotix. Yeah, I can still download Knuckles Chaotix. I don't think Nintendo... I don't think Sega's planning on suing these guys for hosting Knuckles Chaotix anytime soon. I don't think they're selling that one. I just don't... What do you want me to do, Nintendo? I will pay you money for this game. I won't pay you $60 full for a 20-year-old GBA game, but I will pay you a reasonable amount. How much... GBA games went for $8. $8! If you want to buy them secondhand off of eBay, they cost as much as a new fucking game. Why? $8. Nintendo used to think hey, these games are worth $8. That's the value of these games. That's what they're worth. You pay us $8, you can play these old fucking games that we don't care about enough to sell them, like, physically. So, you know what, just download them, $8. That was the price tag. Now there's no price tag. Everything's illegal. You want to play Pokemon Pinball? Too bad. Fuck you. You don't get to. You just don't get to. You can't pay $8 to download it to your Nintendo system. You can't play it through a subscription service because they just arbitrarily decide what games do and don't go on there. I'm going to theorize that it's because their emulators that they use for NSO kind of suck ass. They do. You play Super Metroid and that shit lags hard. So I imagine that their emulators are worse than like actual emulators or PC. It might be because of the hardware, but I'm inclined to argue no, because I've got old Android phones that run emulators better than the Nintendo Switch can, despite also being an ARM-based device in about the same spec. And, you know, with all the Android overhead, you'd think that would run worse, but no, it runs better. So Nintendo's developers on their emulators just suck ass. Why? Because they don't care enough to put money into developing good emulators firsthand for their systems. They just care enough to get your money and no more than that. So you can't even play Metroid comfortably. You have to play shitty Metroid through a subscription service in order to play the game legally. Either that or own a 30-year-old console that might break arbitrarily. You know, my Super Nintendo 1995, the capacitor blew and I'm fucked. Like, what's a guy supposed to do about that? Unless you know how electronics work enough to tear it open, not electrocute yourself on the janky internal power supply. Actually, I think there's had external power bricks, but still, you might electrocute yourself, but you have to get in there. Oh, a capacitor exploded? Maybe the motherboard is permanently fucked and unusable. But on the off chance that it didn't, then you have to get in there, you have to pull it out, you have to clean the thing, you have to find a new capacitor that is the same kind, put it in there. You have to manually repair your own system just to play this fucking game. Why? Because Nintendo decides that you can't just buy it from them for a new device anymore. You have to play it their way, or you don't play it at all. That's how Nintendo operates. They are so very specific with their IP. You play with Nintendo, you play it their way. You can't play Nintendo stuff on Gary's Mod because that upsets them and they want to make money off of that, even though it's free advertising. Okay, so you can't play Nintendo on Gary's Mod. I want to play Nintendo on my Nintendo. Too bad it's not a game that we support. You can't pay $8 for it anymore, and we don't have it on the Switch. You just can't play that game anymore. You can't obtain it anymore on a Nintendo device unless you go to eBay and buy it from some guy that isn't Nintendo. I don't understand why that's the system we have. Why? Nintendo, would you opt for... You could have Virtual Console. You could be making money off of these games. Whether it's $8 or you could charge fucking $30 for every game. For all I care, just make them obtainable. You would piss some people off, but you wouldn't piss me off. I just want to play the game. I just want to buy the game. I just want to play the game. You would make infinitely more money if you had Virtual Console available on Switch and I could just buy Pokemon Pinball and play it on my Switch for $30. That's $30 free dollars. There's no dev cost there. Zero dev cost. It's a 4 gigabyte... It's 4 gigabyte. It's like an 8 megabyte file. All you have to do is distribute an 8 megabyte file off of your servers that were already operating to sell other games. So, net near zero uptime cost for distributing these games. Plus 100% profit because these games were developed 30 years ago. The only development cost would be the emulator, which you have to unshitify because your emulator sucks ass. I think that's why they haven't done Virtual Console on Switch, is because they can't manage to emulate things well enough to sell all of their games. But also, I think it's because they think they're gonna like remake these games. They think, oh well, why would I sell Metroid Prime Trilogy on the eShop for $20 when we're gonna make an HD remake of just Metroid Prime 1 and we're gonna sell it for $60? How do we sell that? Well, take it off the eShop. Take everything off the eShop. Kill the eShop. Now we can remake every single game and sell all of these old ass fucking games for $60 as if they're new. And that's what they're doing. Super Mario RPG, it was a pretty remake. I don't know. I regret paying $60 for that. I wish I had saved it so that I could buy Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, which is also $60. That's a 20-year-old game for $60. It might have sold for $60 on release. I don't fucking know. But you can't buy it now, and you can't buy it until the remake comes out. And then that's the only version of the game you can buy. Which, you know what, that's up to Nintendo. If you're going to make a new version of the game, then you don't have to sell the old one. But for the games that you're not going to make a new version of, you're never going to re-release Pokemon Pinball Ruby and Sapphire. You're never going to do an HD remake of Pokemon Pinball Ruby and Sapphire for the Game Boy Advanced. You've got bigger fish to fry. You make a new Pokemon game every year, and it's shittier and shittier. You don't have time to put into an HD remake of Pokemon Pinball Ruby and Sapphire. Just sell the old fucking game. I will pay you a stupid amount of money to download this 4 megabyte file to my Nintendo Switch to play it. But you don't offer that option. And then when I find the only alternative to play this game that isn't buying it from some fucking guy off of eBay, where I don't know if I'm getting a legitimate copy of the game, I don't know if I'm getting a functional copy of the game, even if it is counterfeit, I don't know what the fuck I'm getting, and I'm interacting with a third party who isn't Nintendo. It's just some guy. Nintendo makes no money either way, so I might as well download it from a website for free. Too bad, because we fucking DMCA takedown, you can't even post the damn box art here. It's just gone. The game doesn't exist anymore. I can't obtain this game in any way from Nintendo, and yet they don't want me to download it either. I must ask, where's the harm in pirating this shit? Where's the harm? I like to think of piracy like a trolley problem. I'm gonna get into the piracy trolley problem on a separate recording because I'm fuming too much to think of good analogies. But piracy is a trolley problem, all right? Except nobody gets hit by the trolley. Polaroid. You familiar with Polaroid cameras? They're back. Well, they weren't always back, but they're back. They make Polaroid cameras and they make W60 film. You can get big film that goes in old cameras. For a while there, Polaroid as a company completely died and you couldn't get this stuff anywhere. It's like one place that made it. And so there was like a set amount. And I guess the company got revived or someone bought them and was like, let's bring this back as a novelty thing because there's some brand power there. Polaroid photography is like its own niche, and I'm glad to see this back. Here's my analogy. So, piracy doesn't hurt anybody if there's nobody to be hurt. Let's talk Polaroid for a second. Let's say, because this is a real thing that kind of happened. Polaroid suddenly stops producing film for their old cameras. You can't get it anymore. They're not selling the film. You cannot buy film from Polaroid. Now you've got this guy, this, dare you say, friend, who has a magic wand that lets him just produce Polaroid film. Just infinite, free Polaroid film. That's piracy. Is it dubious of you to take on the free film? Polaroid isn't selling it. You're not like hurting them by going to this guy instead of them because they're not selling it. Now, Now, what if the Polaroid guy with the magic wand tried to sell you the film? He's not Polaroid, but he's trying to sell you film that he's creating in a possibly dubious manner. I think that that's illegal, perhaps. You can't sell ROMs. Now, if Polaroid came back and started selling the film again, is it acceptable to consider you duplicating infinite free film? I would also say no. You know, if they're selling the film again, buy it from them because they're the company that makes it. In the same vein, if Nintendo starts selling an old game again, I'm going to buy it from them instead of pirating it because I feel bad. What if Polaroid didn't come back, but there was some guy on eBay that stockpiled a bunch of old, unused film? It might be the film you need. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. It's some guy on eBay. You don't know if it works until after you've put it in your camera and used it and found out whether it worked or not. And at that point, there's no backsies. So, but you've still got that friend that can duplicate infinite Polaroid film. So, is it then dubious of you to go with the infinite Polaroid film piracy wand when there's a guy on eBay selling real Polaroid film? You don't know if it's good Polaroid film or if it's fake or if it's bad or if it's the right kind or if he's scamming you, and you're not giving money to Polaroid, you're giving it to some guy on eBay. You know, who's to say that there's anything wrong with the infinite magic wand Polaroid? Because the only person getting hurt in that equation is some scalper on eBay. You know? It's not hurting Polaroid, the company, because again, they're not selling the film anymore. I would argue that there's nothing wrong with that, which is exactly what I'm trying to argue now with Nintendo games. I shouldn't have to buy it secondhand off of eBay for $1,000, not $1,000, but for several $100s for Pokemon Pinball when it was valued at $8 on the eShop. And then they took it away from the eShop. You know, if I can't buy the ROM from Nintendo, then I'm going to pirate it because at that point, the only person who has anything to gain is some guy on eBay who thinks that his copy of this Game Boy game is somehow worth $100. It wouldn't be that valuable if piracy was allowed. But that's what I'm trying to argue. You know, I think fundamentally we need a system in place that allows piracy of goods that are no longer sold. Abandonware. We need a system instead of whatever copyright system or whatever current piracy laws are in place. You need a system that just says, if they're not selling it, then I can take it. Because there's no way to obtain it unless they sell it. Or I possess it illegally. And they're not selling it. So I have to do it illegally. It's like, I want that piece of software. Oh, we're not supplying it anymore. Okay. But you don't get to sue me when I pirate it. Because you decided to stop selling it. And I understand my analogy is not 100% accurate. Polaroid film is arguably comparable more to like gasoline. Like your Polaroid camera is fundamentally useless unless you have a supply of film. Whereas video games, it's like you buy it and then you have it. And you have that video game until it maybe stops working, which is a thing to consider. Discs go bad, discs rot, you have to replace them. And that's why I'm all for emulators and backing up your games, is because at the end of the day, physical media is destined to rot. You know, it may not happen. It may not be happening a lot right now, but give it 20 years and a lot of people's NES cartridges are going to go bad all at once. The hardware is already rotting. The NESs, they don't read cartridges. You have to replace the things in order to get them to make contact with the cartridges. People's Xboxes are exploding. Not exploding, but the capacitors in old Xboxes go bad, and then the console's done as soon as you have one capacitor explode all over the motherboard. The Xbox 360 had the red ring. And then you've got obscure consoles that because of the way they're jankily engineered, you're basically fucked if you don't keep it in mint condition. Like the Wii U, your gamepad breaks, you're fucked. You can't even pair another gamepad because you have to find one that's the same specific region lock, and the console doesn't like to work without the gamepad. And it's a mess that they don't want to fix because they want you to buy their new stuff. We don't want the new stuff. I want to play Pokemon Pinball Ruby and Sapphire for the Game Boy Advance. But you won't sell it to me. So I guess I just have to pirate it. Because I can't. I cannot buy it from Nintendo. Who am I hurting? Some guy on eBay. Who cares? Not like he made the game. He just owned it and then decided to sell it. And I'm sure someone will buy it when they want to play it on original hardware. I want to play it on my PC with an Xbox controller in RetroArch. And I wouldn't do that if Nintendo sold the game. Like, we're going to sell the game, but obviously we're not going to give you the ROM. We're going to sell it to you on the Nintendo Switch through Virtual Console. That's fine. I have a capture card. I would play it on the Nintendo Switch. That'd be fine. But I can't buy it on there. I can't buy it on the Wii U anymore. They took that ability away from me over a year ago. 3DS is the same case, which I don't have a capture method for that anyway. But there's no way to play that game other than to buy it off of eBay, to rip the ROM from my DS off the cartridge through hacky methods, and then upload that to my computer, and then that's the only legal way to play the game. And I don't understand why that is, because me pirating it versus me jumping through all those hoops, I don't understand how Nintendo stands to lose anything from either of those interactions. I'm obtaining the ROM in a way that doesn't benefit Nintendo financially in any capacity. Whether I do it by downloading it off of a website, or whether I do that by buying it off of eBay and then ripping it from my DS and then uploading it to my computer and then playing it in an emulator. Either way, Nintendo stands to gain nothing. They stand to gain a whole hell of a lot if they start selling their old games again, but they don't want to do that anymore. They only want a subscription service with very select games, none of the good ones. Not a single old Pokemon game has made it onto NSO. We're talking no Pokemon Red, Blue, Yellow, which I guess that's a lot of value, because those are really long games that people like to play for extended periods of time. They make like remakes of those games, and they're still valued pretty highly. I'd say there's more replay value, or rather more remake value in an old game like Pokemon versus other games, because you can remake that game, and the amount of hours in that game, the amount of hours that can be put into that game, are still comparable to something you'd buy today. Whereas, oh, let's make an HD remake of Super Mario Bros. 1. Well, that's like an hour-long game if you play it in one setting. So you're not going to sell Super Mario Bros. 1 HD for $60. I think that would be hilarious. They try to do something like that. That's why they bundled 3 3D Mario games together for $60. I mean, I guess you could say, oh, it was an anniversary thing. They could maybe sell Mario Galaxy for $60. I would be upset if they did. But sure, they could sell Mario Galaxy for $60 by itself. I don't know about Mario 64. I don't know. Just start selling your old games. Otherwise, stop taking the websites down. Either or. One you stand to make a whole lot more money from than the other, and I'm down for both, but you can't do neither. You can't take down all the piracy sites and then not fucking sell the games. And it's like you wouldn't download a car. Why the fuck wouldn't I download a car? Realistically, why wouldn't I download a car? If there was cars that existed, and then I could see a car, and I could make a perfect copy of that car with a button press for free, and now I just have a car, why wouldn't I fucking do that? Oh, it would hurt the economy. Fuck you. Maybe the economy should work in my favor. You ever think about that? You ever think about how I can't afford a house. I can't afford food. I can't afford gas in my car to go to work, to get the food, to get the house. Companies work against us at every fucking turn. So yes, the fuck I would download a car. Maybe if life wasn't so hard, maybe I would contribute to the economy and I wouldn't download your fucking car. But at this point, I have no choice. So yes, I would download a fucking car. Guess what? That's not taking a car away from anybody. It's not stealing. That's the funny thing. So piracy is stealing, according to all of these companies, except it's functionally not stealing. When I download a copy of Pokemon Pinball, Ruby and Sapphire, am I taking it away from somebody at Nintendo? No, the fuck I'm not. Because it's a copy. It's a digital copy. I have just duplicated this thing. Did it take anything away from anybody? No. Maybe it took a sale away, but guess what? You're not fucking selling it! So who cares? Nintendo cares. I don't know why. I cannot wrap my head around why. I don't get it, man. There is nothing wrong with piracy if the games aren't being sold anymore. If it's a last-gen system and the first party is no longer supplying that game, fucking pirate it. You don't have to buy it off eBay. Because whether you buy it off of eBay or whether you download it off of a website, Nintendo doesn't see a dime from that transaction either way. So why the fuck can't I download it? You're not selling the game anymore. Let me download it. If you want to sell the game instead, then sell it. You can't have it both ways. Pick a lane. Either let me buy the damn product from you for money, you get my money in exchange for the merchandise, or you don't supply it and I go elsewhere. You can't just decide arbitrarily that this game from 20 years ago doesn't exist anymore because guess what? It's on my iPhone. I know that game exists. There are GameFAQs forums talking about this game. There are people talking about it on YouTube. People still fucking play this game. There's a speedrun category for catching Jirachi and Pokemon Pinball. It's active. People still play that shit. And it's kind of cool. And I want to get into it. Too bad you can't. There is no way to obtain this game that benefits anybody other than some scumbag off of eBay with a fake cartridge. That's the only people who benefit from this current status quo. I have to ask why. Doug Bowser, why? What do you have to gain from this? Either sell me the damn game or don't sell me the game and I'll download it. You don't get to not sell me the game and then sue everybody who tries to distribute it in spite of that. Because guess what? People don't like when you do shit like that. It's so anti-consumer. Everyone bitches about Nintendo for doing shit like this. The Gary's Mod, maybe you could make an argument for that. But you're just so damn anti-consumer, anti-fan. People want to like your products and you don't sell them. You don't let them enjoy your products. Game is supposed to be an art, but that's companies pull shit like this. That's when they remind you gaming isn't an art. Games making isn't an art. Games are a product, and the company that makes the product is totally and wholly allowed to decide how the product is distributed, or if the product is distributed. They don't care about this. They don't value it as art. That's what Vimms Lair was about. They archived all of the art. They had the game. They treated it like art. They had people talk about how beautiful the game was. They had them ranked based on graphics. They had them ranked based on sound. They liked to appreciate all of the cool techniques that went into, sapping every bit of power out of whatever given system and making a cool artistic masterpiece out of it. They had the box art. They had screenshots. They talked about their memories playing these games. Because us gamers treat games like they're an art form. We look at them like art. We look at them like the art they are, but they're not art. They're products. And at the end of the day, John Deere-ass Nintendo gets to decide how you interact with their product. And they will sue you to hell and back before you get to decide how to use their product. You don't get to. It's up to them, only them, nobody but them, and it's not going to change. I guess the alternative is to get politicians into office that understand what the fuck is happening. I don't think they know how to work their email, let alone what the fuck a video game is, what an emulator is, etc. This isn't going to change. This is never going to be changed by the law. And legally, it's never going to work in our favor when it comes up in court. The only way that this works is if Nintendo chooses to respect us fans, as fans. And when we all come together and say, hey, why the fuck are you doing this? This doesn't benefit anybody but scumbags on eBay. They have to look at that and be like, you know what, you're right. And then they have to accept their mistakes and go back on it. There needs to be a dialogue between fans and the games companies. You know, the whole thing with Helldivers, when everybody mass disliked the game and mass refunded the game because that whole thing with Sony happened. And Sony listened? That was fucking magical. That never happens. For every Helldivers situation, there are 20 or 30 Nintendo situations where they just say, fuck you for enjoying our art. You're not doing it the way we want, so we don't want you to anymore. I don't know. It's just demoralizing. It makes me wonder why I fuck with video games. They're so fucking fun. And this is just what I've decided to dedicate my life to, or what I've decided to dedicate all of my hobby time to, what I derive enjoyment from in my life. Video games. And then I remember that video games are a fucking product. They only exist to make money. And the game companies don't like their fans. They don't appreciate the stuff the fans create. They don't appreciate the value of a fan base. They find zero value in the way we enjoy their stuff. They just want our money. You know how fucking demoralizing that is? It just makes me question everything. It's why I want to get into indie development. Fuck these people. I'll make my own shit, and people will like that. And I'll treat my fans like they're people. But it's not going to happen with Nintendo. Alright, well, I've rambled into a microphone for 40 odd minutes, so I'm going to call it because I got to go to work. But thanks for listening. I'll see if I edit this down or if I upload the whole thing. If this goes up today, the 18th, or within the week, I'll probably be streaming something Pokemon. There's a new fan game I want, and I want to play the fuck out of it before it also gets taken down. But then I was also going to stream Pokemon Pinball. I'll see if I can find a copy of it somewhere. I won't tell you how, but I'll be streaming Pokemon Pinball sometime over on my Twitch. I'll link it in the description. Thanks you for listening to my angry baby rant. Thanks for watching. My OBS is stuttering. This is strange. Okay, I'm gonna go. Bye-bye.